I go by Hutch. Also, I got a couple of social medias. I go by RC Metal Gear. Metal Gear RC, sorry. Metal Gear RC. I do RC stuff, scale stuff,
Awesome.
if anybody's interested. But I have a couple of encounters. This was whenever I was stationed at Kadena Air Force Base in Okinawa, Japan. So I wasn't very into the spirit ghosts and stuff like that. I was very, very mildly interested, but not like, yeah, it's real or anything. But there was this one building, and I might have to share it on the Discord where the location is.
Okay.
But there's this old building, and the history behind it is it kind of dates back to around World War II era. And it's a shop that we work out of, and I was aerospace ground equipment technician, so it's kind of like a glorified mechanic. I worked on just about everything for aircraft and the equipment for the aircraft. And so I was given access to the building because of the rank I was at, and I was working nights. So one night, a buddy of mine calls me up and he says, "Man, I forgot my keys to my dorm and in my coveralls and my locker that's in that building." And this is like late. It was past midnight. And I think it was the weekend too. So he was out with friends and stuff. And then once he realized, he calls me up. He's like, "Hey, you see, I got the keys to the building." I was like, "Yeah, I do. I'll meet you over there." So we're on the flight line, and I drive my truck out there that used tow equipment around on the flight line. I drive out to the building, and the building is kind of away from everything. So there's a little distance to walk to it. It's not like you can just hide anywhere around there. So it's just kind of like precursor was about to happen. So I get there, it's dark, not very many lights on. I unlock the building, go inside, and as I said, it's a place to work on equipment. So there's a couple pieces of equipment, couple toolboxes. There's a base radio inside there, and there's like 3 doors that's to different offices. So I go in there, and there's only one light on in the building. And I'm not worried about it or anything. So I just hop up on the toolbox, sitting there just waiting for him, listening to my radio, waiting for any calls to come through. So I want to say it was like 15, 20 minutes into it. I hear, well, the base radio, kind of like a static comes through, go. And I'm like, that base radio is off. So I hop off the toolbox, go walk up to it. I turn it on, turn it off. I'm like, okay, yeah, I know it's off now. So I'm like, just like, whatever, something happened. Jump up on the toolbox, wait again. I want to say another 5, maybe 10 minutes or so would pass by. And I hear like a knock at the door. It's like and it's a metal door. So it's like, and I'm thinking, oh man, he's here. He's knocking at the door. And I'm like, okay, go. And like the door's unlocked. So I was like wondering why he didn't open up the door. So I hop off the toolbox, run up to the door, hit the door open. And this is, shortly after I hear the knock. So I open up the door. There's no one there. So I walk out the building, look around, and I'm like, there's nowhere to run to and hide. So I'm thinking, maybe he's playing with me. So I walk around the building. No, I don't see nothing. There's nowhere he can run and hide. If anything, I would have caught him running. I even checked around my truck. No one there. So I was like, go back inside, sit up on the toolbox, and here another 5 minutes or so go by. And in the corner of the building, next to one of the doors, I hear just a clear, like somebody clearing their throat 3 times. And that's when the hair on the back of my neck stands up, and I go like, oh, wait, I know where I'm at. And I just kind of like hopped off the toolbox because I knew all the doors were locked. There's nobody in the building. It's like I say, it's like 1 o'clock in the morning. So I just like get out of the building, just calmly walked out, went to my truck, and surely, I want to say another 5-10 minutes came by. He comes, shows up, and he's like, dude, what? I need to get in. I told him about it, and he's like, oh, I got to check this. I got to check. And nothing happened with us. So that was the first incident that I had with that building. I had 2 more incidents with that building, and they get a little interesting each time. So I want to say it was maybe a month later. It was night shift again. Hardly anybody on the flight line. The building's locked up, and I'm working on a piece of equipment, and I need the paperwork for it. So I was like, okay, I know where it's at. It's in that building. Let me go get it. Go in there and by myself again. It's probably like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and you gotta remember this is a tropical island. At night, it's still like 80, feels like 90 degrees. It's hot. It's humid. This building does not have no AC except for one of the offices where the computers are at. So I'm in the Bay Area with all the equipment that we work on. So they got big garage doors. There's no fans, nothing on, no AC, anything. And I go up, get inside the building, and I walk up to the wall where all the paperwork is in the little slots. So I'm looking through the slots, looking for the paperwork, and I get this eerie feeling that someone is looking over my shoulder. And I'm like, I look back, there's nothing there. So because of the previous incident, I'm starting to think, okay, maybe it's something. Maybe it is a ghost. So I was like, okay. I take a step back, and it feels like ice cold. Like I just stepped into in a building with air conditioner on, and I'm like, man, this is cold. So I take a step to the left, and it's hot again. It's hot, humid, and I'm like, I grabbed the paperwork, and I'm like, let me just see. And I started walking around the building, and I started to count the cool spots. When I got around 8, I was like, okay, I'm out of here. I leave. So like I counted like 8 cool spots, and I'm like, okay, I'm done. I'm leaving this building, locked up, got out. I want to say it was probably another 3 months later, 3 or 4 months later, I'm back on day shift. I'm not on night shift anymore. Building that day, and it's morning time. I want to say it was roughly 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning, and me and my buddy, we were outside of the building working on a piece of equipment. I'm working on one, he's working on another one. And then the guy that was in the building, he had to leave to go to the other shop. So he jumped in the truck, went to the other shop to go get something. So while I'm working on my piece of equipment, it's like, oh, I need a certain piece of equipment. So I was about to get up and go back to the shop to grab it. So I look up and I see somebody, and there's this water fountain, and it's right next to the garage door that slides open. And the garage door was open, so I had a clear view of the water fountain. And there's somebody there drinking water, and I think it's my buddy because it almost looks like him, in uniform, everything. And I see him, and I'm like, oh, maybe he's just getting a drink of water, and he's going to be walking back to his piece of equipment. So I'll holler at him, hey, can you grab a certain piece of equipment? And he kind of like looked up at me, and then my buddy was actually at his piece of equipment, and his head popped up because he heard me holler his name. He popped up, so I turned and look at him, and I'm like, wait, who's at the water fountain? And as soon as we both turned and looked, it disappeared. And I'm like, what? And then I told him the stories of the 2 incidents I had before, And those are the only 3 incidents I've ever had with that place, and nothing ever happened after that. So, and then shortly, I want to say about another year later, I was leaving the island. So I didn't have any other experiences with it.
Well, man, that's awesome. Um, the just the idea of having these occurrences happen in the same location over time and time again, just to give you some sort of validation on what you saw the previous instance, has got to be pretty insane.
There is one other incident. So my wife's Japanese, and when I met her when I was stationed in Okinawa, and there was one time I stayed at her house that night, and we were laying there, and I'm about to fall asleep, and I hear this pop sound. It's like electrical popping sound, and I know there was a lamp next to me. And I jump up, and I'm like, because I hear a popping sound, and working with piece of equipment, I've heard electrical pops before, and I'm thinking, I turn on the light, I'm looking for smoke, looking for burnt wires. There's nothing there. And she's just like, lay down, go back to sleep. And I'm like, what? And I'm like, okay, I lay back down. It happens again. And I go to do the same thing again. She just like grabs me, and she's like, no, don't move, lay down, go back to sleep. And as soon as I realized it, because every time it happened, it was right when I was slipping into sleep. So you go from conscious to unconscious, that's when it happens.
Right.
And she grabs me, and she's like, shh, don't say anything, just go back to sleep. And so I was like, then it clicked, like, oh, it's just a ghost messing with us, because she heard it too. Because I asked her the next day about it. She's like, she heard it too. She's like, the thing is, a lot of Okinawans learn, like, when you have any encounter with a ghost, ignore them and they'll leave you alone.
Yeah, it sounded like she was pretty familiar with it to instantly recognize
Yeah,
what you're reacting to.
Because a friend of hers, she and her friend had went out that night, and they came back to her house, and so her friend was sleeping in her bed, and same thing happened to her, was where she heard a popping sound, but she said it was in a different location of the house, and she and her friend got so scared that she actually left that night because of the popping sound. Yeah.
Man, that's wild. Yeah. That's pretty crazy, man. I appreciate you so much sharing these stories with us, and you're actually our very first caller to ever call in. So this couldn't have went any better, and I'm very, very, very grateful for that.
I have a question. You still
Okay.
there, buddy?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm here.
So the building you were referring to, you said this was like an area that you could only access if you were like a higher ranking person, or it's got restrictions to who can come and come and go.
Oh yeah. It's restricted because it's on the flight line.
Right. So
So it's actually on the military Air Force base.
Yeah. So you had 3 encounters at that specific building?
The 3 encounters at that specific building.
Do you know of any like background information about that building as to why there would be like high paranormal activity there? Maybe someone got an accident or anything like that. Do you have any information like that?
No specific accidents to that location that I know of or been told of. Now, I've heard of from other people I worked with at that base, people that had encounters themselves. So they had the encounter, and they told me about the encounter. And the encounters that they had, they knew why it happened, because they were previously at that base and something tragically happened to someone, and then years later when they came back, they had an encounter which they remembered what the guy looked like from the reports, like, hey, such and such had a tragical accident, and they would show a picture of them in uniform and stuff like that before they died. And then later on had an incident where they were like, there's your buddies over there switching it off, like turning off a piece of equipment. And they're like, no, we're just by ourselves. And then when the guy like described the person, they were like, oh wait, this is the person that died like 5 years ago at that location.
That's interesting. That's pretty wild.
It seems like this place is a hotbed for paranormal activity.
Yeah.
Well, especially Okinawa. So Okinawa itself, if you look into World War II, the history of it, the Japanese government was telling the locals that the Americans are coming. They're going to, I don't know if you need to censor this out, but they're going to and pillage everybody. They're going to kill the men, they're going to kill all the women, and they're going to enslave the kids.
Right.
That's what they were telling them. So a lot of people were committing. They were, especially they say a lot of cliff points, usually near the ocean, are hot spots for spirits because a lot of people were just lying up, jumping headfirst off of cliffs to commit suicide, so they wouldn't be or enslaved or something like that.
All over fear
because
mongering.
They were afraid. Yes, just straight up fear mongering.
That's insane.
And the ones that survive, they realize like, oh, the Americans came, they're feeding us, they're giving us food, clothing, and safety.
Right.
But yeah.
Well, Mr. Hutch, if you ever find any information about like a big tragedy or specific incident like that, or that from anywhere from where you were stationed at, and want to reach back out to us on the Discord so we can kind of add that in here, that would be fantastic. But we appreciate your call, brother. This has been awesome.
Yeah, I'm gonna look up on Google Maps and I'm gonna get like the location of that building. I think it's still standing. So I'll try to get you the location and a couple images of the building.
Oh, that would be fantastic.
Awesome. And I'll put it on Discord for y'all.
Awesome. Thank you so much, man. And thank you for calling in.
No problem.